This symbol is used for a place that I want to be included. Don't take your eyes off of that owl. It's important. Yes, the building is just when I was watching. Doesn't smell like ammonia at all. There's no ammonia smell in the building. There's no smell of rotten eggs. There's no smell of feces in the program is not stable at the moment. Wait until that thing calms down. So I'm going to concentrate on I have a photo of her on my desk, and I'm just trying to stare at it. And I'm like, because she's got one face and good luck. So that video is running in the background, but that's okay. I'm going to focus on there's also the photo in blue in the background of that class. The relaxation of both photos is science. Science concurs in the relaxing effect of members of the opposite sex. The color blue, certain types of blue. Expressions on people's faces. I have the arbitral expression on the photo, on both photos. The photo in the background is the photo is the thing that is in the foreground in my presentation. Her getting of an interview shows interest in something. The eyes are not focused on directly out of the plane, but it's interest as if she's speaking naturally during the conversation which she was doing. It's not neutral. I don't know the word to describe that expression. That is positive. actually speaking. She was pontificating that. That is her pontificating expression. Eyebrows all over the place. Cute. It's also fun. See someone you find really attractive. Doing something that you find attractive. Speaking intelligently without being subject matter. Very relaxing. I haven't read about the effects of the green background. I would be interesting to read. Now there's this symbolism that might be associated with green, but I'm not really that interested in that. I'm interested in scientific effects that a green background would have. Green is the product of yellow and blue, right? Yes, I think it's good. So you're going to get reflected in them, so you find blue light can intensely can be excited with it or at a certain intensity. But below that intensity, it can just pleasurable because our brains pick up on the stimulus caused by that movement. Right. When I say pleasurable, I mean the same type of pleasure that you get when you drink a nice tall glass of cool, cold, or even hot if you prefer hot water. Means everything's okay. Everything's all right. It's that kind of pleasure that green light is associated with at below a certain intensity. Green's combination. It's not a chemical mixture of pleasure candy, but it's usually one piece. A mixture of pixels. So you are getting the same wavelength, just at lower intensity, mixed in with another signal. Another is green in most instances. My understanding is that you're actually seeing green. This is what you would see in your mind. You see a mixture of all those that reflect, emit, yellow light, extending the molecules, and reflect or emit, to transmit what happens blue light. And that receive mixed message. Mixed messages gives your brain interprets as green. The same would happen. So you basically what you're seeing is your brain interprets signals that are either red, green, or yellow on a sliding scale. There are thresholds. At a certain point, your eyes call it yellow. Above that point, when the message starts getting significantly mixed, you start seeing shades of green. Sometimes people call it shades of blue. That's usually when it passes a certain point of blue involvement. And there's certain point things like that. Cyan is that on the red side? That might be close, but no, that's on the sea green. So like blue. And you go on and until you actually get blue again, and you start seeing bluish, right? And you get your light blues. by mixing in complete spectrum of light. White. That's everything. All at once. Neutral house. And that's what your light is. It's looks completely different than the other mixtures. And then you keep going, and you get to the right? And you can reach the same process for yellow or red. Black is the absence of reflected origin. White is, when you're talking about white, not something. When you're talking about white, is the presence of reflected wavelengths in relative to each other. Now, here's something that'll blow your mind, because it's not always straightforward. Circumstance. It was something that I looked up when I was playing around with polarized light. What is polarization? Well, remember how I use that term levo and dextrolevotergy? That's actually confusing. So when you have a pure substance, we never find those. So when you have a substance that is at a specific purity, above a specific purity, which is usually quite high, it will rotate light that passes through it. So what do I mean by rotate? Do I mean corkscrew or spiral? Yes and no. What I mean is, if you look at a chart, 360 degrees, and you use planar light, so you have a thin, narrow band of light that passes through a purified substance in one direction only, or in we'll use the one direction only. So we'll skip to how you might get that one direction only. And we'll just say you have that already. And you pass it through that purified substance. Specific substances that are translucent and allow light to pass through. It will rotate the light in one direction or another to a specific degree or amount. That's called chirality. First described, I believe, for polymers. Polymers are the molecules that people were able to characterize best. Why? Well, because metals, or metals that we know, and alloys that we know, mostly do not transfer light. Do not conduct light. Polymers, like glass, that there are things that can be polymerized, like silicon glass, plastics, repeating subunits regularly, repeating subunits of specific kinds of carbon chains in plastics. Look at this. And I do not know all of the electrophysiology that allows them to transfer light. Crystal structures. Crystals. Not your normal silicon crystal. Things like quartz and other things like that. So that's when you get into the fusion between your normal repeating regular polymers, hydrocarbons, and metals. That's very complicated, and I'm just not going to talk about that because I don't understand it that much. We're going to stick to the easy stuff like water and plastics. the light passes through these things. And then it will be rotated left or right to a certain degree, depending on the compound and the purity of that color. And that is Karl. Now, you can then create a screen. This is going to be steps 2 of a molecule that of a substance that only allows light that is rotated or is oriented in a specific direction to pass through it. Now, you might think that this is very complicated and heavy. It can be, but it is very basic. It's been this has been applied to everyday life for over 100 years, well over 100 years, 200 years. What do we most commonly, what up to 1990 or 1995 or so, what was the most common everyday household item that would apply these principles? The camera is your everyday store-bought, not professional grade, but just even the store-bought cameras. Polarising lenses. They are typically used to reduce glare simply by reducing the amount of light using the amount of light that enters into the lens that could produce that annoying glare, a sunspot, or a reflection from another reflected surface. If you're outside walking around downtown or what have you in a car, taking pictures of things that you pass as you drive down the street. The first thing it does is it reduces the total amount of light in any direction that enters the focusing lens. The polarizing lens sits typically outside of or in front of any other lens or apparatus that you have before on the typical old camera, the mirror, the shutter system that will either stop light from entering into the focusing lens, going through the final focusing lens, the aperture, what have you, and onto and exposing the film to light, that chamber to light, or being focused in the basic camera to the eyepiece. In the older cameras, it was an either or and wasn't a split kind of simultaneous thing. In the newer cameras, even the manual cameras, there was no interruption in your ability to see what you're taking a photo of. In the older cameras, there was when you hit when you hit the button for whatever your shutter speed was, for that amount of time, you would not be able to see the object that you were taking a picture of through the eyepiece. The newer cameras, after a certain date, and I don't know where it was, there is a continuous feed of light to the eyepiece. You never miss a beat. Same thing with the digital cameras now. It uses the same mechanism, it's just put on a photo cell instead of a piece of film. So the first thing that's reduced, again, is the amount of light that enters, and that reduces your perception or your ability to perceive a glare, even though it's still there. The next thing is, you have to ask the question, what causes the glare? And I hinted at that. A lot of the times, it's light reflected off of another surface before it enters into the lens, the chamber, the focusing chamber. You have, so what am I saying? When I say that light reflected from an object that you are not interested in, or an area of an object that you have not expressed interest in, by directing squarely your lens at it, it is distracting light that crosses the glare. That light is from a direction that is outside of what you have focused and set your f-stop, your shutter speed, and so on and so forth to deal with. You could say, but it's in the frame that I have set, the frame being the border of the picture that you have expressed interest in by setting the distance and the focus. Yeah, maybe, but that's how your eyes can do it to a certain extent. And that has to do with, we'll just say, under the hood interpretation of images. To a certain extent, your eyes, your brain, not your eyes. Your eyes have little to do with it at this level. Your brain can just say, yeah, there's a certain level of light over there in that side of my vision. I'm just not going to pay attention to it. And it doesn't bother me. Above a certain point, your brain can't do that. It's bothersome. The camera definitely, well, most cameras definitely cannot do that. They can do one thing at a time. Most cameras. So they can't just say, I'm going to ignore that spot. You can do that in after capture processing, but not for most cameras before it creates the image. And that's where you get the glare. So you have light coming in from a direction that is other than what you indicated you were from your opposite side. Comes in at a different angle. That is the next move in which the polarizing lens prevents or can prevent a glare from occurring. When you use a polarizing lens, you are getting light that is only coming directly into, or within some small tolerance of variation, coming directly into, straight into the focusing lens of the camera. This is often used for bright sunlight, direct excluded of sunlight, photos that involve a wide field of focus, broad field of focus. It's not so bad if you have a very good lens, high quality lens, and you are able to zoom the focus in or just focus on a teeny tiny area and block everything else out. You're going to get a very odd looking photo if you are shooting at something in the center of a field that is 50 feet from you. Those of you who have fairly decent cameras can do that, and what you see is maybe take a picture of a flower. You see that flower, or even the spot on the flower, is in focus and everything else is blurred. That also reduces glare. But you don't see the whole field, do you? You just see that flower or that spot on the flower, and everything else is blurred. It can be very artistic if you're doing that intentionally. But if you want the whole field, you have to deal with some blur. You're getting light with something from all directions. So that is why people use polarizing lenses. How did people discover the polarization effect of some purified polymers? I don't know exactly, but I can tell you that it was probably accidental, or it was probably somebody found something that naturally occurs. It could be a piece of really shiny and pretty pure quartz, something like that. Some rock. It could be something else other than quartz. And they were generally studying the transmittal of light through a crystalline structure. And then we have this thing called X-ray crystallography, which is exactly the kind of thing that you want to use when you are studying crystal lattice structures of repeating subunits that occur in many things like rocks in the ground, or on the moon, or millions of miles away on something floating around in space. Makes sense, right? And it does the same thing. Those substances do the same thing to X-rays that they do to visible light. So someone accidentally dug something up, or they just rehashed a question that couldn't be answered hundreds of years ago, that the technology now exists to answer. And they put their X-rays to it. They studied the reflection and diffraction patterns of the X-rays and determined, hey, this thing is actually rotating different forms of radiation, light being a form of radiation. And all of that was done after that scientific explanation was done after the first polarized lenses were produced for cameras. Those lenses were the old lenses. They were expensive. They were brittle. They were expensive. They got scratched easily. It wasn't a surface that you coated another piece of glass with. It was a real lens, and they were expensive. And then they figured out how the rock, or whatever it was that they polished up and put in that lens, was doing it. Then they came up with plastics that worked like glass. But how is it different from normal glass? Well, instead of having just several elements that can be turned into compounds, that could then be formed into glass and put into a camera or whatever you wanted to use to pass light through. You could now, down to the molecule, engineer your plastic to rotate light, reflect light, diffract light to whatever degree that you want, either as a pure plastic or as a mixture, an even mixture of different plastics. Each molecule doing something slightly different or very different from the one that is sitting next to it, to give you an overall effect for that slab of plastic that you're turning into a lens. It only works like that. And then, and only then, they're actually just making educated guesses that can turn better over time. They don't know what that lens is going to do to the light until they actually pass the through. That's a general process. But that is the second way that I know that one can, without digitally altering the photo, reduce glare. Here's something for you. And I don't know if this can be done. So we know that sound travels in waves. Light travels in waves too, by the way. Photons, electrons, It's more complicated than that, as always, but that's the basic physics of it. Part of it. Sound is actually part of it. Sound is part of it. It's the effect, the phenomenon, the sensory phenomenon that is caused by the collision of molecules. And that's how sound is transferred, the collision of molecules through space at various frequencies and wavelengths. If there is a sound at a specific frequency and wavelength, it can be described as having amplitude, magnitude, and so forth. You can have a sound wave traveling in one direction, and you can have either a component of a sound wave traveling at an angle relative to that first sound wave, a directional component, or what is called a vector, that directly opposes that initial sound wave. And if that component, that vector of the second sound wave has the phase, its phase is perfectly out of phase. And we're talking about a frame, we say a wave. It is the exact opposite in the phase. So its amplitude and its wavelength are exactly the same. But it is simply out of phase. So its start is not the end. It's not where the end of the first sound wave is at. But its midpoint. At its zenith is at the nadir of the first wave. So the highest point occurs in time, where the lowest point of the other wave occurs in time. That is what I'm saying. If there is a collision of waves, two waves that are described thus, they will negate each other. And you will get zero perceived sound. Because at that point of the collision, now this is the other trick, we have to go back and talk about force. So the amplitude, how high are the waves, or how low are the waves, right? They're perfectly matched, but they are opposite of each other. You will get zero sound at that point. You can hear this effect if you've ever played any instrument, a piano. It's harder on a piano. Two pianos, it's difficult. I'm not sure it can be done with two pianos. But if you have something like a violin or a wind instrument or a horn, and you have something like a drum, certain types of drums, or a piano, you can slide your finger across the strings of specific instruments that can match in tone the notes produced by a piano. You can match perfectly the frequency. It's going to be hard to, you can do it also with the amplitude and the wavelength to a certain extent. It's not going to be exactly perfect. But when you match it perfectly, you'll have the perception of a stronger sound. But when you start varying away on the violin, let's say, or the cello, from that perfect match in pitch, you will start hearing, there will be a perception of beats. Beats occur at the point where you have sound that is colliding, sound waves that are colliding. Different components of the sound that you're producing, because you're not just producing, no matter how good of an artist you are, no matter how high quality of that piano, that instrument is, you're not producing a pure sound, you're producing a mixture of sound. And the components changes as you change, as you vary away from that perfect A or whatever. And those components start colliding in space. The vectors collide. And they start negating each other. And you will perceive what sounds like beats, even though you've struck the key once and held it down. And you pulled out the stops so it just keeps vibrating. The strings just keep vibrating. Or you keep running the string, the bow, across the string at that whatever note that you have struck. Or you keep going on the horn or the woodwind, that new note that you have slightly changed, either using your vocal cords or the actuators that are on the horn, the valves and such. Or both. Or the force at which you go. I've never played a wind instrument or a horn before, but I know that it's very complicated to change notes. There's a lot of things that go into it. So that is what I mean by negating, zeroing out sound. We use that every day now in computers. There's something that in a room, most rooms, with anything in them, or even just four walls and the floor and ceiling, is very difficult to do when the level of noise, even from a single source, is high. And it is called active noise cancellation. Most computers now have it, even if they don't announce that they have it. Most computers have it. It's kind of a basic thing. Most computers don't do it very well because they only have one or two actual microphones and then two speakers that are somewhere close nearby the microphones. And there is not only transmitted sound that is reflected off of a surface somewhere, some distance from the computer, and in a perfect standard room that has nothing in it, that could be a number of different directions that sound returns to the computer and can be calculated, or not, and without much complication. Even if you have, let's say, one bookshelf with some books on it, that can become room. That can become more difficult. But what is really the problem is that sound doesn't just travel through the air. Sound travels through all of the surfaces in your computer internally. That is called conductance. And that is, we'll just bring this back to the world of physiology and computers. That is how your inner ear works. You are hearing two types of sounds when you hear it. You are hearing transmitted sound, and you are hearing conducted sound. And when you have a hearing test, this is what a doctor measures, or a physician, or the technician, or the nurse, or whoever is giving you the exam. This is what they measure. They measure the sound that is conducted through your skull from a nearby object, or an object that's placed on your skull, a tuning fork, or even a speaker that's just strapped to your jawbone or the top of your head. and what you hear that comes through your audio canal. Your ear. And different nerves are responsible for your perception of sound through those two different basic mechanisms. This is why your voice sounds very different to you than it does to others. You will hear more bass in your voice than other people. Why is that? Because bass conducts very well through surfaces, through matter. So you get a lot of that conducted through your skull, through the bones. Treble travels through gases. We just say gases. It travels through light substances very well, much better than bass does. But once it hits something that has any substance or mass to it, it gets reflected very easily. It diverts from its original path and it gets distorted. Bass doesn't travel as far through the air, but it has more of an effect on matter that it encounters. And it's more likely to continue traveling in a similar or the same direction that it was originally traveling when it hits a mass. It is more likely to be reflected back at you in a predictable manner that is not altered as much as the sound that is in the frequency that is considered to be treble. So when someone says bass, we're generally talking about human perception. What would be a more general term is that we talk about the extremes of the audio, of sound. Very low frequencies versus very high frequencies. Treble, it's a treble is considered higher or high frequency. Bass is considered low or low frequency. And I'm at 15 minutes now, so I need to shower, eat, get back to work. That was also Flanigan, talking about general and very general terms. Basic chemistry, basic physics concerning basic, very basic science and foundation of light and sound. Things that are waves. Now remember I mentioned that light is both acts as though it's both a particle and a wave. I did not get into the more complicated basis of that. Simply because it's been years since I have had chemistry. Okay, so I'm going to end this series. Now, I've been talking for 50 minutes. For 44, almost 45 minutes.